sessions conducted by IGDTW Innovation Foundation. It is my pleasure and privilege to give a brief introduction of Innovation Foundation. Innovation Foundation is an incubation center promoted by Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women and situated within the campus of the university in central Delhi. And as you all know, this we are the only technical university for women in the country, which is running UG, PG, and doctorate level programs in engineering, architect, and management. Anveshan is funded by the government of NCT of Delhi and also recognized by DST and Government of India. We are providing all kind of state-of-art facilities which are expected from any good incubation center of Delhi and to our pre-incubatees and incubatees. Right now, we are having 15 startups associated with us. With the blessings and guidance of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am Dr. Amita Dev, we are moving fast and exponentially towards growth path. Recently, IGUW has been awarded second rank in ARIA, that is Atal ranking of institutions on innovation and achievement 2020 in women institution category announced by our Honorable Vice President of India. Our university has also bagged 21st rank in the category of entrepreneurial spirit in WURI rank, that is World University for Real Impact. Today's session will be conducted by Shri Arun Nagpal and Ms. Soumya Moni. Now, Arun is a technocrat and that is an engineer with MBA and has 30 years of diverse business experience covering a range of industries and functional areas in progressively senior roles, including over 10 years at the CEO, CXO, and at board level board member. Presently, he is working with Riddha Group as co-founder and managing director. Always fascinated about social issues, he turned social entrepreneur in the year 2014, co-founding Mrida, which is a Sanskrit word which means soil, a social business venture aimed at facilitating sustainable and scalable holistic rural development and uplifting lives of underserved individuals and communities at the bottom of the pyramid. You all know about the bottom of the pyramid. It is a very famous book also of C.K. Prahaladji, inclusive development from the bottom of the pyramid. Brida interventions is remote rural areas, including energy access, education, health and nutrition, skill development, livelihood, women empowerment, and agriculture. Integrated CSR activities form a core element of Brida strategies through its partnership with leading corporate like Mahindra and Mahindra, Rio Tinto, IL&FS, Hero Honda Group Company, Reliance Foundation, and Inox Air Products. Through its FMCG brand Earth Spire, Merida provides market linkage for small and marginal farmers and village folk. Since its conception, Merida has initiated interventions in 42 villages across 9 Indian states, over 22,000 lives. Arun and his team is now aggressively attempting to scale up in India and progressively overseas as well. More information about his initiative that can be gathered from his website, meritagroup.com. Arunji, it is our pleasure to listening you. Thanks for accepting our invitation and sparing your real valuable time with us. Thanks, Arunji.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Dr. Arora, pleasure to be over here. And thank you for giving me this opportunity of sharing my thoughts. And for all the others present, thank you for sparing the time on a Sunday to come and listen to me. Thank you. So can I go ahead, Dr.
Yes,
Arora?
yes, please. Sir.
Okay. So, you know, the idea of this presentation over the next 45-50 minutes, what I'd like to share with you is something that I'm calling forward into the future, because, you know, whatever happens today, one has got to keep looking forward and, you know, moving ahead despite all the uncertainties around us. And what I've titled this presentation is Reflections of a Social Entrepreneur. So while I will be sharing with you my journey as a social entrepreneur, I actually give this presentation on behalf of the entire team at Merida, which is, you know, 2 other co-founders other than myself and a team of 42 of us who are a part of this organization. And I also speak on behalf of people at the bottom of the pyramid whom we try and impact through our work. So this is called Reflections of a Social Entrepreneur. And what I'm going to try and do is share my experiences, but not only sharing experiences, because as I was sharing with Dr. Arora a little while ago, I think these sessions are to me not only about sharing experiences, but also about learning from sharing. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of your ideas, your thoughts, your questions, and some suggestions that you may have. So this is what one is looking for: sharing experiences and learning from sharing, right? Now, let me just start with a small picture. This is a lot of people actually ask me why I got into social entrepreneurship in the first place, and what was it that actually triggered off that move into social entrepreneurship. So while, there were a lot of things that happened there, but in some ways, I would say that this picture is something that really triggered off the final move there. So this was in a remote village in Rajasthan, about 6-7 years ago. And this was in the peak of summer, so it must have been about 47 degrees centigrade outside. And as we walked into this village and we came into this household, there was this little girl who was there, not a stitch of clothes on her. And there was this hammock that she had, and if you would see that there is a small infant in that hammock, so probably the sibling of this little girl whom she was taking care of. What is not in this picture is that there was a small glass, half filled with water that was there. So probably that is all that this little girl had to sustain herself during the day. There was no one else in the house. Probably the parents had gone out into the village and into the fields, and they were earning their daily living. Now that was something that really struck me, that look, this is what life really is in villages in India. And the thought came that, look, is there some way in which one can do something for these people through our work? Is there some way in which one could impact lives of people like this in remote villages? So that was, if one were to say, in a nutshell, that was an experience that really triggered this move into rural development, into the social entrepreneurship space. I'll come to that a little more in detail. Now, again, another picture. I don't know if you'll be able to make out what this is, but this is a real life picture from one of the villages in Uttar Pradesh where we've been working. This was in Bareilly district. And you may not really be able to make this out directly, but you'll get another perspective when I show this picture. They are actually the same. So this lady was in the picture even earlier, and she's doing something on the cooking fire. And the difference that happened, this was a village which did not have electricity. And what we did was we provided a 250 watt DC solar microgrid to electrify that village. And we provided a 2.5 watt LED bulb. So it was a 2.5 watt LED bulb that actually got switched on and transformed the life of this lady from darkness into light. So the difference between the earlier picture and this is just a 2 to 2.5 watt LED bulb. So that's how I titled this slide, "What a Few Watts Can Do," right? So this, you could make out the stark difference. So this is how this lady lives for most of her life when she did not have electricity. And this is the kind of impact that a 2.5 watt LED bulb made to her life, literally as well as figuratively, transforming her life from darkness into light. So which is what brings me to something that we feel very strongly about. You must have heard about think big. Everybody talks about think big. We are thinking of a different paradigm. Why can we not have a different paradigm which says think small, right? But when we say think small, we also say be a transformer. So the idea is that just like, a transformer takes a small voltage and amplifies it into something much bigger, right? If we think small, but look at it from a transformation impact, you can actually transform lives at the bottom of the pyramid. Because as they say, small is powerful. An ant carries something which is many times its own weight, or small drops in an ocean, right, can really have a ripple effect which goes far beyond where that drop actually fell. So small thoughtful actions can really bear great results, right? So that's one of the new paradigms that I'd like to start off with virtually at the outset, which is think small, but be a transformer. Think of small little actions that can have a transformative impact. Now, how do you convert something from small, right, to something which is transformation? And that I say that is what we require is actually the holistic approach. So when you combine the holistic approach with the power of the small, that is how you achieve transformation. And I'll give you this through a practical example. So I was talking to you about this small village in Uttar Pradesh, which did not have electricity. So imagine that for the last 70 years since independence, this village did not have electricity, and they were living like that lady whose picture I showed you in the first one, completely in darkness. Right now, what we did was set up a 250-watt solar LED DC solar microgrid, which we got funded through a corporate social responsibility initiative. So they provided us with this DC solar microgrid, and from darkness, we suddenly were able to bring it to 6 hours of electricity per day, and we just provided a load of 5 watts in a household. That was 2 LED bulbs of between 2 to 2.5 watts each, and a mobile charging point per household, right? So that is what we did. Now, the other thing that we have learned, in the development sector is that, don't give anything for free. So even if you're working with the poorest of the poor, the moment you give something for free, it loses its value and it starts getting taken for granted. On the other hand, the moment you say that, look, if I'm giving you something of value, you've got to give me something in return. I mean, that changes the mindset completely, right? So what we said was, we told the villagers that now that we're giving you electricity, you were earlier spending money on kerosene, right? You were spending money on charging your mobile phones. Now you're going to save that because you will have all that access in your own house, right? So we said that because you're going to save some money and we're giving you a certain service, you've got to give us some money. Now, since this grid was funded by a corporate social responsibility initiative, we did not need that money. So we said that whatever money you give is something that is going to remain within the village. So we said we'll open a bank account and we'll deposit whatever money you give into this bank account, and we'll create what is known as the Village Development Fund, which is something that you can use to maintain your grid. It is something that you can use for your own future requirements, right? So we said that, okay, we will create a Village Development Fund. Now, the next question was that, look, okay, how much should we pay you? Again, we said that, no, this is not something that we're going to say, because it's going to be your money. It's going to create a village development fund for yourself. So the other thing that we do is we create what is known as the village development committee in that village. So we typically identify potential leaders within that village. So typically, a few men, a few women, and a few youth, right? So now this becomes the leadership team of that village, right? The future leadership team, and they become a village development committee. So we told the villagers, saying that, look, you sit down together with your village development committee members and decide how much money you need to provide for this energy access, right? Now, so they decided. So there were about 45 households in this village, and they agreed that they would pay 150 rupees per month for the energy access. Now, 150 rupees per month, let's assume there are 40 people who are paying. So there was 6,000 rupees which was coming into the village development fund every month, or let's say 72,000 rupees at the end of the year. Now, the next step, what did we do as part of the holistic approach? We started telling the villagers, saying that, look, don't just look at this as pure electricity, right? Now that you have energy access, now that you will have a few hours of productive work before you go to sleep in the evening, try and see how you could use this energy access for some activities. It could be stitching, it could be knitting, it could be grinding, it could be weaving, it could be something, so that you can productively use the energy access that you have in the village. So we said that let's use the village development fund, let's use the village development committee to do some kind of training or skill development activity. So what the villagers said was that we'd like to teach our women in the village on how to stitch, because that is one skill that we feel will be useful for them. So we said that's fine. So now let's utilize the time that we have. Let's utilize the money that is already available in your village development fund for skill development. And we started teaching them how to stitch. Now, if you go through this entire process, if you follow through the holistic process, the next step is that you encourage the people whom you have skilled to become entrepreneurs so that they can generate sustainable livelihoods for themselves. I'll give you a practical example. example of this. But the whole idea of the holistic approach is that you encourage them to become entrepreneurs. Now imagine people in the village who are becoming entrepreneurs and they develop a product or a service. Now the next step is, how do they actually find a market for this product and service so they can monetize it and earn an income for themselves? So the next step we have to do is that we have to support these entrepreneurs with market linkages. And once you actually follow this holistic approach, means you provide electricity, you create a village development fund by charging them something for the service that you've provided, foster a local leadership team within that village, use energy access for training, livelihood, skill development, encourage people who become skilled to become entrepreneurs, support these entrepreneurs with market linkages. That is when you can actually showcase transformation. That is when you can use the holistic approach to convert the power of the small into something which is transformative. So what did we do? So when we went and started working in this village, this was about 6 years ago. Again, these are real life pictures from that village. Now, as you know, in the villages, the women have these ghungat or the veil in front of them, and they would only talk to you when they had a male member of the family by their side. So this is how we actually started working with that village. What we did was we provided a solar LED bulb in order to replace the kerosene lamp, right? As I explained, they said that they wanted to teach their women how to stitch. So using the money that they themselves came up with and created a village development fund. I still remember this was about 5.5, 6 years ago. So we went out into the market, bought 3 sewing machines, arranged a local NGO to provide us with a trainer who could train them how to sew. And under a tree, we set up these 3 sewing machines, bought a few mats, and this is how we actually started. So this is actually how we started teaching women in that village on how to stitch. To cut a long story short, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've taught about 150 women in this village and nearby villages on something simple as stitching. And some of these girls have on their own taken that initiative to transform themselves from skilled women to entrepreneurs, and they've set up the stitching center near their village. And in the stitching center now, they've started doing stitching for their own village. They've started doing stitching for other villages nearby, and they've started earning sustainable livelihoods. What we tried to do was, using our experience, using our knowledge of customers in urban areas, we helped them to get market linkages. We helped them to stitch bags, which we could provide to institutional customers, etc. And we helped them to create further market linkages. In addition to the bags, we helped them to make these palazzos, which we helped them to, create a catalog, etc., which they actually started selling not only in India, but in university campuses overseas. So that's how, starting from, the energy access, we were actually able to do skill development, convert them into entrepreneurs, set up a stitching center in that village, and create market linkages. And that is what I mean when I say think small, but think holistic. Because if you look at any of these interventions, it's a 2.5 watt LED bulb. It's a small little intervention that started by people contributing 150 rupees per month each. It started with 3 sewing machines, and mats under a tree, but ultimately transformed into a bunch of entrepreneurs who were selling their products not only in India, but also overseas. And this is something that, I say, so this is how we started. And this is where we ended. So, the whales came off, the entrepreneurs were created, and the same ladies today do not hesitate to get onto a Skype call and make a call to us to say, hey, we've started the stitching center, we've got material, can you help us to create market linkages? So this is how they're reaching out to the world today through Skype, transforming themselves from the picture that you just saw on top. So this is what I call the power of small. And I'm spending time on this groundwork because that actually explains, and that's a lesson that I'd like to share with all of you also. You don't need huge resources in order to start something. A journey starts with a few small steps. Take those small little steps, right? Think about the power of the holistic approach, and that will give you the same concept of think small, think holistic, and transform to small marginal farmers. Now, since I mentioned right now in Indian agrarian economy, if you really want to do holistic rural development, you've got to work with small and marginal farmers. Now, how does this power apply to small and marginal farmers? Let me give you the example of millets and amaranth. You may have heard of millets, ragi, jawar, bajra. So these are ancient grains which have by and large been forgotten, but extremely healthy and environment-friendly grains. Right? So we started working with small and marginal farmers in Uttarakhand. Now, if you look at millets and amaranth, when you try and sell these as grains or commodities, they sell for somewhere between 25 rupees per kilogram and 60 rupees per kilogram. You convert this into a value added or a processed or a finished product, and you sell millet and amaranth based flours, the same product actually value goes up for 200 to 350 rupees per kilogram. You convert this further up the value chain and you start selling cookies, they sell for up to 2000 rupees per kilogram, right? So that's how the multiplication factor goes from 25 to 60 to as much as 2000 rupees per kilogram. Similarly, if you take raw turmeric from the soil, that sells for somewhere around 25 rupees per kilogram. As processed turmeric, which is boiling and drying and cleaning, the price goes up to 150 rupees per kilogram. Now, you can only get probably 300 grams of dry turmeric from 1 kilo of the wet turmeric, but still the value goes up from 25 to 150. But just the simple process of boiling, drying, and cleaning turmeric, brings in a huge amount of value addition. As a finished product, if you go and buy organic and ground turmeric in, let's say, in a Whole Foods store in the US, that sells for close to $150. So that, so organic and ground turmeric sells for as much as 8,000 rupees per kilogram. Again, you see the multiplication factor from 25 rupees per kilogram to as high as 8,000 rupees per kilogram. Right? So what has Mrida tried to do? So Mrida has exactly tried to implement these same principles of moving up the chain. So what we've done is we started working with small and marginal farmers in Uttarakhand on millets and amaranth. We tied up with a nutritionist and a food technologist here in Delhi. And we've created this brand called Earthspired. So Sanskrit for soil. So Earthspired is inspired by the earth. So we've got this range of healthy millet and amaranth-based multigrain flours. So we have a gluten-free, we have a high protein, we have a diabetic-friendly flour. But what we've tried to do is move up the value chain. Similarly, we've moved further up the value chain from flours to cookies. So we've got a range of 6 different millet and amaranth-based gluten-free cookies in 6 different varieties. So what we found in this process is, because we're moving up the value chain, the farmers are able to get better than market value for the produce that they make. The women in that village are encouraged to get further, the women boiling, drying, and cleaning turmeric so that they're able to derive additional value. The people in the in terms of saying to do is to customers we are able to provide their health benefit while contributing to an environmental and a social cause, right? Mrida is running a business in the process because we are selling these products through Amazon, Big Basket, and through our own website. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a situation of true win-win for all. So what we're trying to do is in every level of value, right? We implement the same concept in the villages where we work. So what we're trying to do is actually create this concept of the empowered village. So it's empowered village, which is sustainable and scalable holistic rural development. What we do is work on different areas like access, agriculture, whatever is required in that village. Involved with skill development, and essentially trying a holistic approach to develop that village. How do we try to do, like explain to you the whole idea about development committee? So we try and engage with people in that village in the development process, develop
Sir, we've lost your voice completely.
Sir, yeah. You can start, sir. You can start.
Yeah. Is there a
I think.
Are you able to see your
Yes, sir.
screen, please?
Sir, if you can, yeah, share it again, your screen.
I think
There was some
you're
disconnection.
not able to see it.
Yeah, now it is being shared.
So one sec.
Yeah, it's fine, sir. It's fine now. Absolutely fine.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry about that. Probably the internet connection was a little framework where we work in different aspects of life in the village, try and impact different aspects of life in villages. We foster local leadership in the form of the Village Development Committee. And since we are not experts at every aspect that we work, we essentially work as systems integrators. So we try and engage with partners, NGOs, etc., who can work with us and facilitate this sustainable and scalable holistic rural development. So let me tell you about what Mrida is all about, right? So Mrida, as Dr. Arora pointed out, is essentially Sanskrit for soil. So we say that we are a social business venture or a social enterprise, which is inspired by the soil. It was founded in the year 2014 by individuals with proven corporate experience. So I had about 30 years of corporate experience. My other co-founders had several years of corporate experience themselves. What we're trying to do when we set up Mrida was we said that the whole idea is how do we bring in the same corporate rigor and the financial discipline of the corporate world into the development sector, right? How do we build sustainable and scalable models for holistic rural development? One of the things that we were very clear about is that, development need not necessarily be just donation or philanthropy or grant. As I said, the moment you give something for free, it loses its value. So what our idea was that how can we bring to bear whatever we have learned in the corporate world and use that in the development sector and try and actually build sustainable and scalable business models which would lead to holistic rural development. As I mentioned to you, we work on agriculture, skilling, livelihood, energy, and related interventions as development triggers. How do you actually get an entry into the village? How do you build your credibility? How do you get the faith of people in the village with whom you're working? And then ultimately try and impact every aspect of life in the villages. What we're trying to do is not only work ourselves, but try and reach out to others, which is something that I'm trying to do even as I'm talking to all of you, is how can we actually create a movement for sustainable and scalable impact? Whatever work we are doing, can other individuals, can other organizations also start doing similar work so that we can actually create real impact, right? So if somebody really asks us what our business is, we say that our business is the business of development. As I said, we firmly believe in the fact that donations, philanthropy cannot really lead to development. Development can be run on the lines of a business. And our approach as social entrepreneurs is to bring to bear whatever we have learned in the corporate world, bring in the same rigor and the financial discipline of the corporate world and implement it in the development sector, right? So to give you a perspective of the kind of work that we do. So one part is we work on this whole concept of holistic development. So whether it's setting up solar microgrids, working with farmers, working with women, creating what we call as village level entrepreneurs in the villages, creating these village development committees, setting up solar microgrids, etc. We try to impact all aspects of life in the village. We have another business called Mrida Greens. Like I explained to you about Mrida Earthspired. So that was, we are trying to create a business to consumer, a B2C business model, where we try and provide healthy food products to the end consumer. Similarly, we've tried to create a range of herbal extracts. So we have this manufacturing and processing facility in a place called Umbergaon in Gujarat, which is a good manufacturing practice, ISO certified facility, where we make extracts of plants and herbs. So if we are working with aloe vera, amla, ashwagandha, noni, giloy, etc., a range of healthy food herbal products, which we source from tribals and people in the villages, we convert this into a value-added product or an extract, which we sell to B2B customers. So just as, in the case of Earthspired, if you were to buy aloe vera capsule, the extract that goes into that aloe vera capsule is a herbal product which is made by Riddha. So the same principle applies. We provide a sustainably sourced herbal extract to the B2B customer. We're able to run a business for ourselves in the process. The whole objective of that business is to provide sustainable livelihood opportunities to tribals and to people, small and marginal farmers in remote villages. Right? I've already explained to you about Mrida Earthspired. We have a range of flours, we have a range of cookies, we have a range of ready-to-eat products, which is a sweet snack and a salted snack. And we have a range of ready-to-cook products like upma and khichdi. So if you look at the Mrida group as a whole, the Mrida group as a whole is structured into what is known as the Mrida Heart and Soil Foundation, which is a Section 8 company, and a for-profit venture, which is called Mrida Greens and Development Private Limited. And the way the whole ecosystem works is we use the Mrida Heart and Soil Foundation as a Section 8 entity to access donation or philanthropy or grants in the form of CSR interventions. This money is utilized in villages to promote entrepreneurship. So you can look at it as seed capital, which goes into villages, which is used to promote entrepreneurship. And once these entrepreneurs are able to come up with products and services, they require market linkages. The market linkages are provided by Mrida Greens and Development Private Limited, either in the form of B2C products, which is Mrida Earthspired, B2B products, which is Mrida Greens, which is the herbal extracts, or our interventions which facilitate sustainable and scalable holistic rural development. So that is the way the whole Mrida group is structured. The idea, as I indicated, was to create an ecosystem which fosters entrepreneurship in rural areas. And through fostering entrepreneurship and providing market linkages, we're able to facilitate sustainable and scalable holistic rural development. Our story so far in terms of presence, we are present in 9 different states. We're proud to say that we've worked in about 42 villages in 9 different states in the country, impacted more than 22,000 lives all over the country. We try to measure the impact of whatever we do. So through our solar microgrids, we've been able to reduce more than 71 tons of carbon dioxide emissions because you're replacing kerosene with LED bulbs. We started with 3 of us as co-founders. We are very delighted to share that today we have 42 of what we call as empowered team members, and that team is growing. Not only have we done work in India, but we've started laying the groundwork for working in overseas markets as well over a period of time. We have our head office in Delhi. One of our co-founders is based in Mumbai. We have our manufacturing facility based in Gujarat. We work in different states. And since we work in remote villages, we have a lot of people based in or near the villages in field locations. You know, in Bokaro in Jharkhand, we have people based in a place called Bakswaha in Madhya Pradesh. We have people based in Bareilly and Kaptanganj in Uttar Pradesh, and so on. Right? In terms of assets, as I mentioned, the first asset that we are very proud about is our 42 empowered team members in different parts of India. We're proud of the kind of relationships that we have with educational institutes, with multilateral agencies like IFC, the World Bank, and ICRISAT. We're proud to say that Mrida is being taught as a case study at INSEAD. And we hope through engagements like this, we're able to also work with aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself, with the Anveshan Foundation and others, so that we can build our network as we go along. Mrida and Earthspired are our intellectual property or our trademarks, because we've received trademarks for both these products. Right? If we look at the vision of Mrida, as I mentioned, we started in the year 2014. So in the year 2015-16, we just made very initial beginnings into whatever work we were doing. So we had, at the end of the first year of operation, we had worked in 5 villages, impacted about 200 lives in a village in Uttar Pradesh. We had a small top line of just 20 lakhs in the first year of operation. And obviously we didn't make profits at that point of time. Right? Over a period of time, if you look at 2018-19, we had grown to 11 crores in terms of our turnover. And that was the first year that we made profits. In the year 2019, 2020, which was last year, we had worked in 42 villages, impacted more than 20,000 lives with a top line of 10.5 crores. Last year was when COVID hit. So, in the last 2-3 months, our operations got disrupted. And from a situation of profits, it was a bit of a setback because we just about broke even last year. This year, we're looking at, in spite of the pandemic situation, we're looking at growing. We'd like to impact another 10,000 lives at the bottom of the pyramid. We're looking at a 50% growth in turnover, and we're looking at getting back into profits, right? So this is the journey so far. Like I said, we were founded in 2014, right? In 2017-18 was the first time that we made cash profits as a group. So we were able to showcase the business of development. We were able to showcase that you can actually do work which empowers and uplifts lives at the bottom of the pyramid, and you can do it in a manner that is financially viable. In the year 2018-19, we had a high growth opportunity. And if you've gone through this concept, we had one business which is called the Cash Cow, which was our B2B business, Riddha Greens, where we were generating profits and cash flows. The investment business was the Riddha Earthspired, because building a brand is expensive and it takes time and it takes investments. So as a group, we are structured in such a way that there is one business which is already starting to make profits and generate cash flows. Those cash flows are going to subsidize or to support a business which is currently an investment business, which is the Riddha Earthspired, right? As I explained to you, in 2019-20, COVID impact hit us quite badly during Q4. But what we're looking at is new paradigms and opportunities. And now we are saying that despite the COVID situation in 2021, we're looking at how we can get into new paradigms, create new opportunities. And we are now seeking growth funding so that we can scale up our initiatives and impact to the next levels, right? So this was something that I tried to explain, starting with new paradigms like think small, be a transformer, right? Explaining how the Riddha journey actually came about, the B2B business, the B2C business, what has been our vision, right? How have we grown from a small company as a startup to explaining, the kind of ups and downs that we went through and how we are now trying to come up despite the COVID situation. So along this journey, what is the food for thought? Or what are some of our experiences that we could share with you? Right? And this, you would say, is very, very relevant in the context of the pandemic. You cannot really control what happens to you, right? Did any one of us imagine that we would be in this situation 6 months ago, right? Did any one of us imagine that we'd be, communicating virtually through Zoom calls rather than a face-to-face meeting across the table? So you cannot really control what happens to you. But believe me, you have full control over how you can respond to a particular situation, right? Trust me, you have complete control on how you can respond. And in your response lies your power. And this is something that we've seen, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's somebody at the bottom of the pyramid in a remote village. I think most of us do not even realize the kind of power, the kind of potential that we have within us. It's only when we take the plunge that we realize that there was a lot that we had in us. But it's very important for us to be able to take that step, take the plunge, and then realize the kind of power that we hold within ourselves. And I'll talk to you a little more about this, right? You can either master change, right? Or you can allow change to master you. You can either sit back and say that, look, there is a pandemic, we can't really do anything, we can't move out, there's nothing to be done. Or you can say that, look, despite the pandemic, despite the situation that we are faced with, what is it that we can do? Right? So you can either master change or you can allow change to master you. Let me tell you a few examples of something that we're doing. Now, this is, another example of those ladies that I spoke about, the stitching center that we had in this village near Bareilly. And do you know what we did? During the pandemic, we had students who were interns from the Institute of Home Economics who were working on textiles, right? 3 of these girls actually came on board in the height of the pandemic when we had the lockdown, and through virtual mode, through Zoom calls, through video calls, they taught these girls in this village how to make face masks, which was something that was a requirement, right? So this stitching center operated immediately after the lockdown started. After the lockdown ended, they started operating in this village. They learned how to make these face masks through video calls, right? And now they're making these reusable face masks, right? They are made to WHO specifications. They're 3-layer face masks. And we make this, they're nicely packaged. They're made from, they're made for cut pieces. So no, you're actually utilizing even waste material in order to, make these face masks to WHO specifications. Like I said, 3-layer masks, and we branded these. We're selling this in the form of, through various corporates, through their networks, etc., with a small little tag which talks about how to use the safe mask, a tag which says that, look, by buying the face mask, you're supporting entrepreneurship for women in this remote village. And these are nicely packaged and sold. And as I said, this whole exercise, from teaching them how to make the masks to getting the masks made to the packaging, etc., everything happened in the midst of the pandemic situation. So those are the kind of things that can actually be done if you decide that you're not going to just allow yourself, you're not going to allow change to master you, but you're going to master change. What are some of the other things that Riddha is doing in the new normal? Like I explained to you, they're making these face masks. We actually conducted a program with the Columbia Business School in New York, right? A program on design thinking. So can you imagine a bunch of MBA students at Columbia Business School in New York communicated virtually with a bunch of villagers in Bokaro and Jharkhand, and completely through video calls, they communicated. We took them through a video walkthrough of the village. They engaged with the villagers, understood the kind of problems they had. We administered questionnaires for them. The questionnaires were administered by us, and through either a video call or through a text file, they were transmitted back to the students in New York. And using their principles of design thinking, they actually came up and made presentations to us on how the challenges that these villagers in Bokaro were facing could be addressed, right? And some of these practices are also currently being implemented. And all this happened virtually in a pandemic situation, right? Through the BML Munjal University, they have a program called Sankalp. I will not get into more details in the interest of time, but we have as many as 47 interns who are working together simultaneously, and they're doing this 6-month-long internship exercise. So from Bareilly in UP to Bokaro in Jharkhand to one of the remotest villages called Abin in Manipur, these 47 interns are similarly engaging with villagers in these different areas, understanding their problems. So for instance, in Manipur, in this village called Abin, these students from the BML Munjal University are actually engaging with villagers, encouraging them to get into beekeeping. They're arranging for crowdfunding so that they can actually set up beekeeping boxes in these villages. And as part of this internship program, they're actually going through the holistic approach on training on beekeeping, supporting them to become entrepreneurs and set up these beekeeping boxes. And at the end of this internship program, they will actually get the first harvest of honey from the village, and they're going to create market linkages for that. So they're going to actually, as a part of this internship, they're going to go through that entire holistic approach, from creating entrepreneurs to getting an output of organic honey from Manipur and selling it in the market. And all this is happening, through video calls, through Zoom calls, without actually physically being able to connect with each other, right? In INSEAD, we are actually doing a very interesting program called Business Strategies for Impact and Profit, which is going to happen in May and June next year, but where we will connect campuses in France, in Singapore, and villages in different parts of India, where again, they're going to go through a video walkthrough to these villages, engage with the villagers, understand their problem, recommend solutions, and actually conduct programs with the support of Riddha. Now, all these things are happening in the new normal as we talk of it as of now, right? So to sum up, what have I tried to explain to you so far? The whole concept of think small, be a transformer. Think holistic. That is what makes the difference. Think impact. As I explained to you, we need not necessarily look at only donation or philanthropy or grant, but business can be a win-win situation. There is absolutely nothing wrong in making profits as long as you're not exploiting somebody to make the profits. But if you can create value addition across the value chain and make profits for yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong in it. That is what the essence of social entrepreneurship is, in fact, right? Think scale. That is what will create a real impact. As I mentioned to you, we're very proud of 20,000 people that we have impacted at the bottom of the pyramid. But considering that there are 200 million people in India that need to be impacted, right? Unless and until we can scale up what we are doing from 40 villages to 400 villages to 4,000 villages, if we can talk to more individuals like yourselves, if we can talk to more organizations of the kind of work that we are doing, and all these organizations start pulling together towards a common objective, which is social impact, that is when you can create real impact, right? As I said, we've got to partner and collaborate, right? Unless and until we partner and collaborate, you cannot really scale up, right? The power of passion. Everything that I'm telling you, working in villages is not easy, right? I may be telling you about all these success stories, but believe me, everything does not happen as easily as it is explained to you on a PowerPoint presentations. I mean, we go through ups and downs. We have 2 steps forward. We have 1 step back. We've had our own failures. We have failures, at different steps of the way. But unless and until you have that, that passion, that commitment, that motivation to do something to achieve a certain objective, that is what is very, very important to keep things going. You've got to enjoy the journey. Entrepreneurship is not, there is no finite. I don't think we will ever, Mrida is expected to last me, much, much beyond, my time. It's going to last several generations. It's a journey. It never ends. So unless and until you're enjoying the journey, unless and until you're undertaking that journey with passion and commitment, that is what really makes the difference. After I explain you through this entire process, the Mrida model, I've tried to explain to you the Mrida journey so far and what our dreams for the future is, including how we're trying to handle the pandemic situation. Just as we come to a close, I just want to share, I shared with you one picture of what triggered something. I'll share another picture. Now, this was a village called Dhadianwala in Uttarakhand. You had to cross a riverbed in order to reach this village. Luckily, when we were there, it was just a small stream, so we could cross, right? Sometimes when the river is in spate, you can't even cross it. You need a tractor or a trailer because there's no bridge. And when the river is completely in spate, you're not even able to access this village. Anyway, we went into this village and we came across these kids. And you know what they're laughing at? They're actually laughing at us because, they're wondering who these strange people are coming in from this thing. We are well dressed. We came in a car and we got down and we came here to do a survey of this village. And these people are finding it very amusing. Now you look at them, he's not wearing shoes. He's probably got tattered clothes, right? He's probably not had a meal. He doesn't really have very much to look forward to, but he's completely in a state of bliss. In fact, he feels very amused at looking at people like you and me. And that is what actually leads you to a very, very stark message, right? These people, they learn how to find happiness in what they have, right? Very often I feel we learn to find unhappiness in what we don't have. We don't really look at what we have, right? We see what we don't have. I'm trying to see not what I don't have. I'm very conscious of something that somebody else has. And my concern is, why does he or she have something that I don't have, right? I'm sure this would, a lot of you would relate to something like this. So that's something that I've learned in these villages. The poorest of the poor, they learn to find happiness in what they have. We often learn to find unhappiness in what we don't have. Some of our learnings along the way, right? Believe me, there are no problems, right? I would prefer to look at them as challenges, and please look at these as challenges. And this is not a play of words, but believe me, a problem is something which is negative. Somebody comes and tells you, I have a problem. You know what your first reaction is going to be? I've got so many problems of my own. Ab kya aap dusri apni problem mere paas leke aa gaye ho, right? Now you go coming to me with another thing. But imagine if somebody comes and tells you that I have a challenge. The first thing that when you hear that there is a challenge, you feel that, look, how can I kind of overcome this challenge? The challenge becomes something that motivates you to overcome it, right? So there are no problems, only challenges. And there is no challenge that cannot be converted into an opportunity. If you look at anything that we've said, look at that village which did not have electricity. Can you imagine by providing just a 2.5 watt LED bulb, you can convert a life from darkness into light? By using the power of that 5 watts of electric load in a household, you can actually create this whole holistic cycle where you do skill development, livelihoods, entrepreneurship, creating market linkages and facilitating development. Can you imagine the whole cycle from small and marginal farmers, instead of selling a 25 rupee per kilogram millet, if they are able to sell a 2000 rupee per kilogram cookie, right? So there is no challenge which cannot be converted into an opportunity. And believe me, very, very relevant in today's context, life is not about waiting for the storms to pass. It is about learning how to dance in the rain, right? The pandemic situation is not going to go away in a hurry, right? By the time the vaccine comes in, gets administered, it's going to take its own time, right? But can we actually stop whatever we are doing? We've got to find out the challenges that exist. We've got to find out ways and means of converting those challenges into opportunities, right? The only limits, as always, are in the mind. You know, you cannot discover new oceans unless and until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. You know, when we started Riddha, we started with a general idea that we've got to work on sustainable and scalable holistic rural development. We're not going to have a pure philanthropic model. We've got to be social entrepreneurs. We've got to be in the business of development. We've got to identify opportunities and work on those opportunities. And as we went along, you know, the opportunity about millets and amaranth opened up, the opportunity about herbal extracts opened up. So these were, so that's a classic example of the fact that you cannot discover new oceans unless and until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. You've got to take the plunge at one point of time. Another very powerful thing, if an egg is broken with outside force, a life ends. You know, you break an egg, you know, the life ends. If an egg breaks with inside force, a chicken pops out, you know, a life begins. Something very, very simple, but isn't it very profound? You break an egg with outside force, a life ends. If an egg breaks with inside force, a life begins. So what is the lesson that this teaches us? Transformation begins from within. So any amount of explaining that I can give to you, I can only share my journey, right? But unless and until you internalize it, unless and until it comes from the heart, unless and until you decide from within that you will, you know, try out new paradigms, you will get into an entrepreneurship mode, whether you become a social entrepreneur or a regular entrepreneur, etc., that transformation has to happen from within, right? I'm sorry, I'll just finish very quickly. So if you have made mistakes, there is another chance for you. You may start any moment you choose a fresh beginning. For remember this thing that they call failure is not the falling down, but the staying down. Believe me, if you get into an entrepreneurship mode, whether it's social entrepreneurship, whether it's any other enterprise that you start, believe me, the chances are that you will fall. You will, the more you try, the more new things you try, the more innovations you try, you will face setbacks, right? But that is not called failure. Right? If you fall, that's not called failure. If you fall but refuse to get up, if you fall but you don't learn from the mistakes which caused you to fall, that is the failure. So the failure is not the falling down, but the staying down. No matter what has happened to us in the past, our future is spotless, right? Because every time, and I can tell you this from my own experience, there are times we've tried everything and nothing seems to work. You know, a customer is not paying us, a vendor is not giving us material, some work that we've done in the village, you know, the people are not responding very well to us. There are all kinds of challenges. So at the end of the day, there are times when you feel that, look, nothing seems to be working, right? But then when you wind up the day, you start the next day, there is some new opportunity that comes up. There is some new challenges that presents itself for you. And that is something that you can convert into another opportunity. So as they say, right, today is the first day of the rest of our lives. Again, a very, very simple statement, but it's very, very profound, right? Today is the first day of the rest of our lives. And in this COVID situation, this is something very, very relevant. Every day, you've got to take one day at a time and say that whatever may have happened to us in the past, today is the first day of the rest of our lives. So what do we do next? All that I would like to tell you then is go forth, right? And write your own story. As I said, this is not about my experience. It's about the Riddha experience. It's an experience on behalf of the people that we're working with. It was just to give you an idea of what our story has been all about. This has been our story. If you've internalized it, if you found something that connects to you, if you found something in this that touches a chord in your heart, use that and then go forth and write your own story. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I've kind of overstretched the time a little bit. I know we've almost run out of time, but I'm happy to respond to any questions or queries that you may have. And if you're not able to have any queries immediately, these are my contact details. Dr. Arora will have my other contact details, including my number, etc. I would be more than happy to engage with any one of you and respond to questions even after this session. Thank you very much. And my apologies once again for overstretching the time.
Oh, sir, nothing, sir. It was a great presentation, very clean presentation. Just like a story, means it is a great life you are living, a great soul and a great life.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll just stop sharing so that then we can,
One point I couldn't understand that when you were saying that in total 9 states of India you have worked,
yes.
but suddenly going to the Manipur, sir, that was something out of track. So what was the story behind that?
Very interestingly, like I said, one of the things which I had told you, I mean, when we get into it, we don't get into it with an idea of exactly where we will go. Let this journey evolve. So there is actually a very dear friend of mine who is actually a schoolmate of mine. We studied in school together. He's an agriculturist, and he and his wife, they were working with some NGOs, etc., and they came across this village in Abin, which is one of the remotest and one of the poorest villages in that particular district in Manipur. And they've actually, for the last couple of years, they've settled in over there, and he's trying to use his agriculture knowledge and his passion for rural development, to work with the villagers over there. Right, so they're working on some sustainable agricultural practices. So since we found that they were working over there, and we liked the work that they were doing, what they were lacking is market linkages. So when the farmers over there were doing the sustainable agriculture, they did not have the resources to actually convert into this sustainable agriculture. So we helped them with those resources, and in turn, we started working with the farmers and saying that, look, you cultivate turmeric, which we will require for our processing facility, and we will buy that turmeric for you. So it became a beautiful win-win situation. So it happened, as part of our evolving journey. So and it's one of the most interesting experiences in Manipur.
Okay. How do you take care of your logistics part from your villages?
In terms of moving to the villages?
Right. No, not only moving, sir, but the material is also, I think that is also supposed to be moved from village to your place.
Yes. So, again, in terms of, amongst the co-founders, so I have a background in primarily sales and marketing, manufacturing and finance. So I, have certain skill sets in that respect. One of the other co-founders is a supply chain logistics expert with many things over there. So he becomes a group resource as far as the supply chain logistics is concerned. So, we utilize his expertise in that. And just to share, I'll slightly divert from this, but it's linked to the question that you were asking. I explained this whole idea of turmeric. If you boil, dry, and clean the turmeric, the value significantly goes up. So that's an example over there. So the farmers cultivate the turmeric. The women don't really have a livelihood activity in such remote locations. So the women in that village actually do the boiling, drying, and cleaning of the turmeric. Now, in the area, there's torrential rains, right? It's a heavily forested area, so forest wood is available. Rains, water is easily available. So boiling, drying, and cleaning is not really, you don't require any input costs, right? But, the value goes up significantly. So you're able to provide livelihood opportunities to the women. Now, when we transport turmeric from Manipur to Gujarat, right, instead of now having to transport 1 ton of wet turmeric, you're actually transporting only 300 kilograms of dry and clean turmeric. So imagine, I mean, you're reducing your supply chain costs, you're creating a livelihood opportunity for the women, and you're creating a livelihood opportunity for the farmer. So think small. If it's a very small activity, but see the kind of win-win situation it creates across the value chain.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And participants, if they have any question.
So, good evening. My name is Priya Kenkre. I'm speaking from Bombay.
Good evening.
So, I had just one question from what Arora sir asked you, how you landed in Aben. But my question was, how did you begin with the first venture, your opening venture? How did you decide which village or what?
Yeah, again,
Is it now that you have villagers or people and that's how you land up in a particular location to understand what can be done, or do they approach you, or is it like a mutual thing? How does it work?
yeah, so very relevant question, Dr. Priya. So again, when we started, we did not have a specific idea. The first village where we worked was this village in Bareilly, incidentally, where that first picture came from. Now, and that's how when we started this entrepreneurship journey, you typically reach out to your own network, people friends and well-wishers, etc., and you look for opportunities. So when we started working, actually, so there was somebody I knew in ILFS at that point of time. ILFS was looking for some CSR opportunities along the highway in Bareilly. They were actually constructing this highway, and as part of their arrangement with the National Highway Authority of India, they needed to actually work with villagers along the highway. So they needed somebody to do CSR activities in Bareilly. We were just getting into this whole CSR activity as part of our work. And this gentleman in ILFS was known to me. So, we just started working in Bareilly. So that happened by chance. But once we started working in Bareilly, then other villagers got to know about us, and they said, look, why are you working there? Why are you not working with us? So one thing led to another. Similarly, when we started working in Eastern UP, it was through LinkedIn that somebody from Mahindra and Mahindra got in touch with us saying, we're looking for CSR interventions. We heard about the work that you're doing. Would you like to come and meet us? So it was a cold call to Mahindra and Mahindra. So we started working in Kushinagar. The first year we worked in 2 villages in Kushinagar. They liked what work we did. So the next year they scaled it up to 11 villages. So, that's how it starts, with kind of reaching out within your network, within people whom you know, and then your work speaks for yourself, and, one thing leads to the other.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good evening, sir. Vipin this side, sir.
Yeah.
Can I ask, sir?
Yes, Vipin.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It's an excellent presentation, and we, being the entrepreneur students,
Yes.
it's very informative, very useful. I have one question, sir. Especially initial days, the kind of work that you're doing is also coming in collision with the regulatory authorities or the political, the establishment which is there. So how did you manage that? Was that a challenge, or they were supportive of your ideas or your work initially? I would say not afterwards. Subsequently, the things get smoother out. But how was the challenge initially, sir?
Again, very interesting. So, Vipin, what we did was initially we, working in the villages, one of the first things, in fact, Dr. Arora pointed this out very nicely to me when we were having a chat before this session started. One of the very important things particularly if you're looking at rural development, is we might have the best of intentions, but the villagers may not necessarily look at us that way. There will always be a certain degree of skepticism, even suspicion of anybody who comes from the towns and is saying that we want to come and work with you. So you have to spend a lot of time endearing yourself to the villagers. You've got to actually be patient. We do typically a baseline study. We actually spend a lot of time, sometimes as a couple of months in the village, just to develop their trust, just to do a baseline study, understand exactly what they want, and then kind of, in a way, ease ourselves into that village. Now, in that process, what we are very clear about is we stay away from the political establishment completely. So we would not typically go to the sarpanch or the pradhan in the initial stages. We would actually work in a very low-key manner with the villagers. And once we've started doing some work over there, once we've built that credibility and started doing the work, we just keep the sarpanch or the political establishment involved. We are happy if they take the credit for themselves, because our objective is the development part, right? So we do not actively engage. We keep ourselves away from the political establishment completely. Just do our work. If somebody wants to take the credit for it, we are more than happy to do that. And over a period of time, once the work starts speaking for itself, then they themselves, come in on their own and say that, look, okay, you've done this. I have some access to funds available. Sometimes you'd have the sarpanch who would reach out to you. Sometimes you may even have the district administration who reaches out to you, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but in a nutshell, we stay away from the political establishment. establish our credentials in that village, start working in an extremely low-key manner without engaging with the political establishment, staying away from it completely, and then allow our work to speak for itself.
Thank you, sir. It answers my question, sir. Based on your answer, my and the next question is, sir, that you have mentioned about a baseline study or the baseline process. Is there a defined process which you follow, or is it depending
Yeah,
upon how the things work out,
no, so
evolve?
we have a standardized questionnaire that we have, and we actually go in with that questionnaire, and we do. If it's a small village of about maybe 40-50 households, we would do a 100% household level baseline. If it's a much larger village, or if it's a catchment area which has maybe a few thousand households, then we do a random sampling and cover about anywhere between 25 to 30% of the households. And the idea of the baseline is to understand demographics, understand their asset base, whether it's livestock or whether it's other assets, understand the needs of the villages, understand their income levels, education, etc. And on the basis of that, we are able to establish the baseline. That means where exactly we've started. And the baseline, apart from the statistical information that it gives us, also serves a very important purpose, which is the ice breaking. Because it's not a pure survey, but then you're sitting down with a village household, you're spending about an hour and a half over there, so you're engaging with the elders in that village, you're engaging with the youngsters, etc., etc. So you're getting a feel, and you're also getting an opportunity to convey to them what work you're trying to do. So in the process, you're able to get demographic and survey information which establishes the baseline, but equally you're able to understand the dynamics within that village. You're able to identify potential leaders and opinion makers in that village, and that's something that helps you in all subsequent activities that you do.
Thank you, sir.
It's a great, sir.
Priya, again, so just one question with respect to the Umbergaon project that you have set up.
Yes.
Was it something that came about over a period of time, or was it something that was, when you initially saw that there was a lot of value addition that could be done? Since
Yes.
you're a marketing person, sir, it'll be easier. Because you'd seen that, you decided, okay, this was probably one of the areas where it's an in-house expertise which could be optimized in some way, and a win-win situation for everybody, all the stakeholders involved. So just wanted to cross-verify that. And is it owned like the Amul cooperative initially started, was owned by the villagers, or, were they also party to it, or is it just an exclusive Riddha initiative with the promoters?
Right. Okay. So to answer the first, so your first question, was about how that came about. So to some extent, the fact that we would work with small and marginal farmers was very clear from day one, because if we are looking at holistic rural development, you've got to work with farmers, being an agrarian economy. So that was very clear. In the case of these herbal extracts, I had some past experience, because one of the assignments I had done several years ago was an assignment which looked at, medicinal, aromatic and dye plants. So one had some basic knowledge about the potential that existed for Ayurvedic products and, plants and herbs. So that was something that was there at the back of our mind. And when we started working in the villages, we came across a lot of farmers who were cultivating aloe vera, then people who were collecting, tribals who were collecting amla, etc. So it kind of fell into place, because aloe vera was something that, one had some background knowledge on it. We came across farmers who were cultivating aloe vera, people who were collecting amla, etc. Then the basic concept of the holistic approach, so rather than sell aloe vera in its raw form or sell amla in its raw form, the idea was to convert it into a value-added product like an extract. So that's how it, the pieces fell into place. Your second question, no, it is not the cooperative model, because the geographic area is fairly diverse. So we could be procuring aloe vera from Rajasthan or from Madhya Pradesh. We could be procuring amla from different locations. So we don't go on the cooperative model. The other thing that we also believe, Dr. Priya, is that we don't want to bind any of the farmers or the stakeholders only with us, because that ultimately at some point of time leads to, we don't want to even have anything which would lead to potential exploitation. So our idea is to work with farmers, explain to them how they could value add their product, how they could increase their livelihood activities. And we said that we will help you to create market linkages. But if you're able to get access to somebody who can even give you better prices than us, by all means negotiate and get better prices. So we, as a principle, we do not want to bind anyone only with us.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
you. So if I are not over there, any of the difficult kind of experience, because you say that everything is challenged and there's no problem, it is 100% accepted, but any of the horrible kind of experience, because it is also good to listen that these all the things you have done or you have faced, but practically many times, as Vipin was also saying, it becomes very difficult. Because
Sure.
when you go and when you are asking any villager that these are my schemes, this is what we will be doing, they say immediately that we will ask somebody because you are outsider. And I will ask from the Gram Pradhan and Sarpanch, and then after we will come back to you.
Right, right. Yeah, sure. Of course, we've had, one of the things was, in fact, in one of the first villages where we worked, very interestingly, we really spent a lot of time, and I think we did a lot of work over there. I myself must have made so many visits over there. We literally slogged it out in those villages. After about 2 years of having been there, somewhere or the other, and we've still not been able to figure out, so that question about the political part was very relevant. So somewhere or the other, a rumor got spread in that village that, there was this scheme to provide free gas connections to, rural households. And somewhere the rumor got spread that because Riddha and ILFS were working in that village, because, in a way that we had already kind of adopted that village, or we were already working there, because of that, they were excluded from the villages which would get the gas connection. Right, right. So it was absolutely a rumor, and ultimately got disproved. But it was quite an experience, that suddenly a place where we were so welcome and where we had really worked so hard for about 2 years, all of a sudden we were almost made to feel, saying that, look, because of you we are having all these issues, so you're not welcome to visit this village any longer. So it's not easy to take. But that's where I said that, you take it in your stride, you try and explain things to them, and otherwise you just take it as one of those learning experiences, and you move on. So we've had 1 or 2 experiences like this, and at the end of the day, it goes into the overall experience. Like I always say, you're able to realize the value of a positive experience because you've had a negative experience, right? Because you've seen a down, you know how you feel when you're down. That's why when you have a high, the gap between the two actually gives you, a lot of pleasure. So I think that's the way we look at it. In fact, I always feel that, visiting the villages or spending time in the villages is one of the most humbling experiences that one has had. Because as I explained in that picture, you go and see people who have very, very little of something that you take so much for granted. But, how they learn to manage within whatever they have, how they learn to make use of the resources. In fact, very often I feel that I end up getting very inspired by them. So while I may feel that we have done a lot for the villagers, I think we have gained a lot from whatever we have seen. Right? So, Dr. Arora, I think we've had these, so to say, negative experiences or those setbacks, etc. But I think that's part of the game.
Great,
so one question, sir. So one question within this site, sir.
Yes, Vipin.
Sir, can you share some light on your funding, or what is your revenue and expense kind of, some idea about the finances?
Sarah shared it in one of his slides, that top line, and this, I think last year it was 14.5 lakhs crores.
No, my point is that whether how you're funding it, sir, in the sense that
so, Vipin, we so far we've been self-funded as an organization. So we started with our own funding, and as we moved along, one way in which this whole thing worked out, because as I mentioned, the herbal extracts business, since it's a pure B2B business, that gives us high volumes as well as values. May not be very high margins, but overall it gives us the profitability and the cash flow, which gives us some surplus And the brand building, etc., is expensive, so we're still making losses in that part of the business. But to some extent, the profits from one business, which is the cash cow, helps us to sustain the other business, which is the B2C model. Over a period of time, we expect that as the brand starts picking up prominence, we should be starting to make good money in the B2C part of the business as well, and then we'll be on a better platform. And now that we have showcased, as I mentioned, that we did a cash break even in the year 2017, 2018. Last year, we actually kind of just about had a cash break even. This year, we should be making good, reasonable margins. And now we are trying to access the market, because we are saying that, look, here we've been able to create a B2B brand and a B2C brand. Because we worked in 9 different states, we've demonstrated our capability to scale. And we've done development. We've built a development model, which is not just a concept, but which is practically there. We have proof of concept on the ground, and we have proof of financial viability. So now we're trying to access private equity and venture capital so that we can, scale up the business. So, and by and large, we were self-funded, but, once our volume started to go up, we've got some amount of unsecured loans and some working capital credit from the banks, etc. And that's how we've been managing so far.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, if I may ask one more question, please.
Yes, sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
Sir, my question was with respect to your, I realized towards the end of your presentation, you were talking about a lot of the academic interfaces that you all have had.
Yes.
And in the academic interfaces, a lot of the names that came up were actually from overseas.
Right.
Is there a paucity of, local players associating, or, is there any possibility that, a model could be built around that also? In India, where Indian business schools or undergraduate schools of international repute could be worked out with your organization.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave that impression. No, but while we do have these linkages with, let's say, INSEAD, for instance, in particular, and Columbia Business School, but then we're working with a lot of institutes here. BML Munjal University is based out of Delhi. Then we've got IIM Lucknow, with whom we are working. We work with Invertis University near Bareilly. So there are a lot of academic institutes within India that we are working in, and which we actively will continue to work with.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thanks for your session.
Not at all.
And yeah, sir, we have learned a lot. It was a very good, informative session, and I will urge my participants also not try to just only imitate. But imitation is also not a problem for Arun, because he always want to do something for the society. So you will be also having some value chain kind of thing. I also thank to Vipan and Dr. Priya for asking very useful questions. So a real enlightenment is there, and I hope that our students have also got some knowledge and information about social entrepreneurship, because it was a learning session. Thank you, Arunji.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to interact with all of you, and I look forward to staying in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
So the second session will be taken up by Soumya Moni. After COVID, marketing has become a problem for a number of startups. So shall we discontinue and continue again, or we can directly, means in 5 minutes, I think she will be joining.
Yes, I think we can continue on play.
We can continue. Okay.
We have just 5 minutes.
And dear participants, please ask few questions also in the last, because it always motivate our speakers. So.
But sincerely, Dr. Arora and Rahul sir, excellent presentation today. It's been so insightful, so application oriented. I'm sure Vipinji will also agree. I mean, the children, of course, are going to really enjoy, because, they're actually getting a live, like he mentioned, successes. And when you asked him the question of failure, he was willing to share the failure too, or the problem that he faced. I think it was wonderful, really wonderful.
And Dr. Priya and Vipan, you can see that in this kind of business also, the person is making more than 10 crores of revenue.
Right. I mean, So I've always personally believed that India has tremendous potential. We don't even know how much we have. We just don't want, somehow we've just put it at the background. And I really want to thank you, sir, for bringing this program to all of us
Yeah.
to actually, make us start thinking along these lines. And with these kind of speakers, it has completely opened up, what all are the possibilities. It's endless. There's so much
Yeah,
to do and
Priya,
there's so much.
Priya, you might not be knowing this person is well connected with number of investors also from US, and he is a big shot. Means it is not very easy to directly go to Gurgaon and meet him. Such kind of people we are bringing just to give some good idea about of our line to all of you. But suddenly sometimes it comes in my mind that participation is very low. So I urge and request all of you kindly to as a word of mouth means you can also propagate this program which we are having to others also,
Absolutely.
maybe near in your nearby area or whatever whichever your friends are.
Bilkul, sir. Bilkul. I'll be in touch with you even after the program is, our courses are over.
Mhm.
But sincerely, Dr. Arora, it has opened up my eyes with respect to entrepreneurship and the possibilities in India.
Mhm.
And I'm saying this as a faculty who's been doing a lot of work in this area, of course, at a very, very minuscule level. Aapki tarah bilkul nahi. Lekin fir bhi, it's been amazing journey. Thank you so very much. I can't thank both of y'all enough and the whole team at Anveshan. I'm sure a lot of my batchmates will agree with this.
Yes, madam. It is really very useful, and it has opened so much knowledge and all for us that it's really wonderful. Excellent effort, sir.
Thank
Sir,
you.
ek hi hai, abhi now we all need to work together with you to support you and strengthen you as your students. Maybe take this thing really forward, like you rightly said. Involve more and more people, take it to ground level, and actually get proper conversions. People getting into the entrepreneurial mode. The more conversions we get, it'll be fantastic. But sincere appreciations to everybody who's associated with this. Thank you so very much.
To Dr. Priya. And Vipanji, you can see that, here in this particular meta group, luck factor was also very important. Means they went and they were entertained. They started with that kind of solar panel, means offline solar panel, and that was maintained. Because when we started doing this, what we found that Gram Pradhan came and they just sold battery and they just enjoyed that money for their own selves. So, means a luck factor is also very important. Two times Arun used this word that cash cow. If in your portfolio one company or one product behaves like a cash cow, na, then all the problems are solved.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
That gives the support for all the other things and to survive and to sustain.
Yes, and it is linked with your luck factor timing.
Yes, sir.
Timing was 2014, which was very appropriate.
Correct.
Sorry to
Correct.
interrupt. Ma'am has joined for the second session.
Okay. Soumya, ma'am,
Hello, Dr. VK Arora. How are you? Good
I am good,
afternoon
ma'am.
to everybody. Yeah.
I am good, ma'am. I am good. Good to have you among us.
Thank you.
Namaskar,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and pleasure is all mine. Yes.
So we were discussing about the first session, ma'am. We had a very good first session on social entrepreneurship. It was taken up by
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm so happy that social entrepreneurship is such a hot topic these days, and given where we are today, as a as a world is facing through this crisis, we really need social development impact leaders across the globe. So wonderful to see this.
and thanks,
Energy.
ma'am, for joining. Yeah. And let me give some introduction about ma'am. But before that, the topic is very, very vibrant and very much useful today's time. We talk about marketing. After COVID, many of my incubators, they say, sir, business is not working now. What about the funding? How we will get? But very less number of people, they talk about induced investment. That is investment from your own profit. When we talk about investment from your own profit, there are number of many functional areas are there, such as supply chain, operation, marketing, HR, legal, IT, many are there. But most important is marketing. So after COVID, what has happened? That it has become very difficult for a number of our incubators and entrepreneurs to go and market their products. So
Yeah.
marketing 100% depends upon what kind of products and services you are having. But ma'am, thanks to you that you are going to take up this particular difficult topic today's time, that marketing innovation during COVID crisis. That is a process innovation. So thank you, ma'am, and welcome. Our second speaker is Soumya Moni. She is working as a director marketing for Encher Technologies Private Limited. Soumya has 22 years of experience in technology marketing with expertise in go-to-market strategy, portfolio and industry marketing, market research and analytics with HP, Oracle, Unisys, Educom Solutions. She is also currently serving as a co-director of Women in Big Data India chapter. She is also a NESCOM Sales and Marketing Core Group member, for Communications Council member and National Marketing Council, that is WICCI member. She has received the most influential global marketing leadership recognition from World Marketing Congress in 2019. On behalf of Anveshan Foundation, I welcome you, ma'am, for your session. It's our pleasure to have you among us, and thanks for accepting our invitation and sparing your time. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Arora. Such a pleasure. And when Dr. Jasdeep, who's part of your university, is when she requested me, I said absolutely. She's also part of our executive council member for Women in Big Data. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this session. This is a topic which is very close to my heart. Today I was reading in the morning that, what drives joy at work, right? It's harmony, impact, and acknowledgement. And these three things, come out. And I think in our world, when passion meets the work, the profession, then it doesn't feel like, you're working. It feels joyous. So I'm so happy to share my passion with all of you. It's in the field of marketing that I have been associated with for over 22 years. So I'll share what I know. And I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. Please make this interactive. I don't know too many of you as to what your profile is, but I understand that you're all interested in knowing what marketing is. So I'll give a tech lens as well as what I know about marketing, and I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. Let me share my screen and let me know when you're able to view this. I think I need, okay, no, I think I can. Okay. Are you all able to view my screen, or is that something which?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, great. Let me just project I just prepared a few slides. These are more like talking points, but I'm happy to, do a more interactive session. Okay. Okay, the topic that I chose to talk about is relevant, contextual, and something which is close to my heart, marketing innovation. But in a time which is very unprecedented, right? It's during the COVID-19 crisis. So as we understand what is really marketing, marketing is, in very simple terms, it's really about taking your offering, whether it's a product or a service, from the people who make it to the people who need it, which are your customers or your prospects. And and so marketing is actually a conduit between the makers and the sellers or your customers. So often marketing is construed or confused with sales. And I wanted to, set that basic premise that marketing is not equal to sales. Marketing, in fact, enables sales. And three objectives of marketing are essentially to enable sales, to generate demand, and to create awareness. So, and all three have to work in tandem. You cannot create demand without knowing who your customers are or your prospects are, and if you don't spread the awareness. And these are some of the tools that we do. You have social, you have advertising, you have digital. Now everybody is gone digital because of COVID-19. Businesses have reimagined their models or their way they operate because digital amplification is now. I think marketing has probably been a little more ahead, or rather ahead of its many of its other functions in an organization, because digital marketing has been around for a little over 6-7 years now, and most companies are using digital marketing. But COVID has just amplified and put a little more emphasis on that. And now, whether it's a selling arm, whether it's a production arm, whether it's other parts of the business, have to get into digital pretty fast. So we'll talk about what the innovation has been. I'll take some references globally. I'll also talk about something which is happening in India as well, which you can all relate to. The other aspects of marketing are SEO, which is search engine optimization, branding, in some of these areas. Let me just, and media. So these are the channels, or these are the areas of marketing that we will cover, and what kind of innovation is happening in these areas while we go through this COVID-19 or pandemic. uh, there's a little bit about me. Dr. Arora, of course, gave a good intro on where I come from. But I wanted to, of course, besides the companies or brands that I have represented, I think one of the things which I feel that there is so much to do with very little time, and I get frustrated because of that. My mantra is, you live only once, so make a difference. And that difference can be at socially, and now more so ever with the pandemic and the crisis. I think social impact or developmental impact that we are able to create with responsible marketing, I think it's important. So the motivation is to make an impact with the experience that I have gained over the years, and whatever space that I can. And given tech is what I'm closest to, I believe, and that's where my interest and my passion lies. I believe there is a lot that can be done in tech for good, or women in tech, or what we can do, brands that support tech, and how technology and digital can make the difference is what I'm sort of leaning towards. So that's a little bit about my introduction and what my motivations and frustrations are. So what's the agenda? We're going to look at consumer behavior trends. We're going to look at how technology is influencing marketing as a function and a discipline. We're going to look at some case studies, impact case studies, while we go through this crisis. And what's the way forward? What are the 7, and I came out with about 7, 8 of those that marketing can look to do. So as incubatees, or as innovators, you could sort of look at these areas while you design your products or offerings, and look at customers, or look at expanding the scope of your product and reaching out to your customers. Let's start with the first one, which is really about decoding consumer behavior during pandemic. Now, this was a study that was done by ET and Brand Equity a few months ago. As soon as we reached, lockdown 1, or it was, or at the end of lockdown 1, the study was done. And what they discovered was there was obviously a change in the consumer adoption and behavior. And where that consumer adoption and behavior came from is that there was a higher adoption of certain categories of products. And health and immunity boosting foods obviously rose quite heavily. Digital transactions went up, because now we are all transacting, whether we don't go to the bank at all, right? Everything is being done through digital transactions. Home cooked meals became such a big thing, because ghar ka khana really drew many of the messages and marketing sort of campaigns for very large FMCG and consumer goods brands. So medium to low retention is really attractive markets. So very attractive markets where we felt, well, these are the categories that developed. And overnight, many of the biggest companies like Hindustan Lever, ITC, they started to focus or refocus on their product categories based on, what they saw as a customer trigger or an event that took place, which shook the world. And it's continuing to do that. Online shopping of essentials, because of social distancing and the demands of being away from any sort of crowded place or markets being shut, really online shopping of essentials rose up. OTT entertainment rose up, because we're all confined. Work became home, home became work. Social media adoption very quickly became, it not only happened with consumers, but also with customers, with companies who were catering to these customers. Then we saw medium to low adoption with online education. Now we obviously see a lot of the overnight many of the institutions, whether it is primary, whether it is higher secondary, or whether it's college, they started to actually get on digital. Now we are all learning online. I'm sure this session would have been done face to face, but now because of the advent of technology and thanks to Zoom, we are able to sort of meet all of you, and we are able to do these sessions very successfully. And similarly, online education courses drew up, and that's how the valuation of many of these companies are also going up because of the online ed market. Wellness as a category became so very important. While there was physical brick and mortar fitness centers who were doing very well, overnight they had to transform into a virtual medium, and online yoga and fitness sessions became extremely important. And organizations came up with happy hours, and these happy hours translated not to drinking in a bar or having good time with friends, but really about wellness and meditation and holistic sort of well-being, given that we were spending more and more hours in front of the computer and working more. Average time of spending in front of the computer rose by 25%, and this happened across ages. And so I think with all of the changes that happened in consumer behavior, market categories started to form of established companies. New companies came into being, looking at this as an opportunity to see how you can serve an unmet need or probably advance a met need. So that's really, what the consumer behavior is driving some of the categories. So how did top marketers respond to this pandemic? And they had no other option but to rapidly innovate. And three objectives: primarily meeting the changing customer needs, pushing through long-standing barriers, and preparing for a different future. So what is this changing customer need? This changing customer need is, if you see Apollo Pharmacy, and I'm sure many of the pharmacy that you're all going, it's all digital pharmacy. So they came up with a category called Corona with Care. So very quickly, companies started to define service categories and offerings where they could meet up with their customers and prospects. And so telehealth and digital health became so important. I think there was a study that was done with many of the large pharmaceutical and companies, as well as healthcare companies, and they realized that virtual or telehealth really rose up. What did not was not was just moving towards that medium, very quickly got on to the digital bandwagon. On Amazon, if you were to track into Corona or wellness products, the number one product on Amazon today is the face masks. So I think really customers are driving demand, and therefore companies or innovators or entrepreneurs have to service those demands by building those categories that fulfill those needs. Just pushing through long-standing barriers is really about saying no to Corona with must-haves. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of categories. 2 months ago, fewer than 10% of patients saw, and this is from a healthcare company in India, where they said that 10% of their patients saw us through virtual visit. Now that rose to 75%. In fact, my latest dental appointment was done virtually. So clearly, as consumers, we are looking at digital, and therefore marketers also have to respond to how and where the customers are and use the appropriate channels to make sure that the makers of products or offerings are able to cater to the sellers as well as the consumers who are consuming the offering. So coronavirus marketing practices is what I'm calling it. So what are these practices? These practices are online commerce, advanced delivery and payments, enhanced shipping, access to paid content, growth of content volume, social and charity campaigns, anti-crisis offers. Many companies, offered many of their products and offerings free for this financial year, especially to their existing customers who are struggling through this pandemic. Collaborations, community and cohort became very important. Many large organizations came together to beat, especially the pharmaceutical industry, that came together to ensure that a vaccine comes out pretty quickly. Online experience products. Many of the retail stores who were sort of looking at footfalls, physical footfalls, started to look at online experience and digital shopping as a medium. adapted marketing communication. So the communication and the context of messages moved away from, sell, 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 and not looking at overtly selling anything, but looking providing comfort to the customers who were going through a very difficult journey with manufacturing units shut down, and making sure that you still have to meet the needs of the employees and keeping the staff on rolls. I think a lot of businesses were struggling and are continuing to struggle. So we as a company decided to come out with a certain set of offerings and services for our existing customers at a very discounted price. And we offered support or maintenance for many of our products for a period of, for 1 year or a duration of 1 year, absolutely complimentary. And many such organizations in their own capacity are doing that, because it's really about bringing the community together and making sure that you build brand loyalty and customer loyalty through these marketing practices. So what should your priorities be? This is where technology, given that customer is going digital, the offering is going digital, marketing is going digital, the priorities also have to be tuned to digital. So what are the 2-3 things that every marketer is looking at? Is to consider moving to a cloud-based technology, because as soon offline or brick and mortar move digital, so obviously the offerings are moving digital, the customers are browsing online, the customers are looking at what they can consume online and how they can facilitate some of these discussions online. I think it's important to sort of move towards a cloud-based technology. So marketers have to also quickly adapt and look at how to sort of get a website going, social media going, making sure that there is awareness and creation of demand happening through the online channel. Prioritize personalization. I think it's important to personalize, and given that the data is available online and one is able to map the customer journey, personalization becomes a lot more easier. Earlier, because of multiple data streams and multiple channels, one wouldn't be able to sort of make sense of the data, given that there was just the sheer veracity, volume, and variety of data that was coming through multiple streams, whether it's offline or online. It was becoming difficult for marketing to sort of make sense of it. So now one can make sense of it because a lot of the shift is happening online. So the prioritization towards personalization is making sense. Brands are now, or companies are now, looking at retention over acquisition. While when you're starting a company, you're looking to acquire customers. But for companies who already have customers, I think the focus should be on farming and not so much hunting or acquisition of new customers. Because it's important to retain what you have to build your loyalty and build your brand equity. And that's what most marketers are currently doing. Earlier, there was a strategy of dividing the marketing budget 60-40, 60% on acquiring new customers and 40% on farming existing customers. But now I think the strategy has changed. It's actually flipped. It's now about 80-20. 80% of our time is about making sure that the customers that we have, we retain them through the journey and we expand our base with them. And 20% should effort or new marketing effort should be spent on acquiring new customers. So what are the creative ads and campaigns that we're looking to run or we're seeing in the market? So Indigo, as you know, has started to fly because there was obviously a no-fly zone for many in lockdown 1, lockdown 2. A lot of people were hesitant to fly. Now they're seeing a lot of milestones being achieved. And they are prepared for this journey. They're preparing the kids for the journey. Recently, you may have also seen that a new baby was born in the flight in Indigo, and they spoke about it as well. So it's really about getting the trust, and that's what they've given a big thank you to their love and trust and support of the customers, alluding to my previous slide, which really is about farming and making sure that you retain your customers. How India's sanitizer market grew. I mean, sanitizer was nice to have in many companies, and we would see that in hotels and many of the larger sort of establishments. But now sanitizer is a must-have. and a new category came out in the market in the span of 6 to 8 months. And that's what this talks about. Demand for sanitizer, according to Nielsen survey, which is a research house, it basically says 87%. It surged to 87% between this, and now we see every household and every space that we encounter has a sanitizer, or looking at hand sanitizer everywhere. So healthcare and safety has become paramount over anything else. So we've gone back to the basics. So if you've studied Maslow's needs hierarchy, we've really gone back to physiological and safety needs, which is the bottom of the pyramid, making sure that safety trumps everything else. These are some creative ads and campaigns across the globe, and this is just to make sure that people are safe and the message goes out. And these are not just social media campaigns or tech for good, but it's really responsible messaging and campaigning by the government, by many profitable companies. And you may also recognize some of these. Of course, these are very large brands. Gold Gym is one of them. Coca-Cola is talking about it. Nike is talking about it. And our own Prime Minister talks about Man Ki Baat, where he's really and that's a campaign that he's run where he's spoken about, how important it is to maintain social distancing. So when these voices are there, it's important to align with these voices and make sure that you strategically craft your communications to the needs of the customers and the needs of the customer trigger events, which could impact your prospects and customers. What are the way forward for marketers? Now, and this is critical, and I've broken it down to some 7 points, and I will read through each of those. Of course, it's self-explanatory, but we'll give some examples as well. So as I mentioned, that it's become a little more about responsible messaging, right? Now it's not about selling or bashing your competition. It's really about purpose driven. So now customers are looking at which company is putting out their stakeholders first. And given that it's unprecedented times that we are living through, the brands will flourish are the ones which throw purpose in front of everything else. So it's purpose before profit. Agility. Successful marketers are really looking at agile marketing practices. And as a marketer, I've also seen that over the last 6 months, I have to calibrate and recalibrate many of my marketing budgets and also my needs based on where my customers are looking for, where my sales is going for, and what offerings to come out with. And while it's pandemic triggered recession, it's important to understand that marketing also has to respond to that. And that response has to be with speed and pace so that you're able to meet the customer's demands. Human connections and cohort, it's so important in these times. And earlier we would look at the cheapest flight that is available, or Airbnb, or something which is cheapest or most economical. As a country, we are price sensitive, so we are value conscious. But now it's important to look at safety, and we are looking at safety more. So that's why it's the choice between taking a cheaper flight or a safer one. And I think everyone would choose the latter, right? Given where we are today. Buying clothing with the fastest delivery or buying with the ethically designed supply chain. I think we are now looking at ethically supply chain. So you will see many companies are, crafting messages so that they are attuned to what customers are looking for. Trust, it's paramount. And I think 9 out of the 10 top brands that you see across the globe, trust would be one of their core values. If you were to go to their vision and mission charter that they would have, that their founders or the CEO or the management or the executive committee or their executive team would have put out, their leadership will talk about core values, and trust would be one of them for sure. So messaging should be sensible and sensitive, and it should be rational as well. So it's a balance of that. So the messaging should be transparent, and one should be delivering those messages as well, where the shift should be across demographics to the values that you would want to impart from your brand. the fusion. So I'm taking an example of ExxonMobil. They're obviously, they are moving from fossil fuel or a brown company to a green company, and they're looking at doing that with innovative business partnerships. And they're building a data platform which can actually. So while oil field is a very risky, when you're rigging oil, or where you are, fracking, it causes environmental damage. So many of these companies are now looking at what are the greener and renewable resources of energy that we could consume with. So I think that's important. They're using data and digital economy to do that. So predictive asset maintenance and advanced meters or smart meters that we're looking at, how we can sort of, move towards greener sources of energy. I think that's important. So running safely and effectively. So energy efficient resources is what many of the large companies are going for. And because of the supply chain that is being created, and because of the chain that reaction that companies like Exxon, Chevron, and many of the large companies are doing, I think new market categories are being made. And that's where the most innovation is also coming from. Talent transformation. So marketing teams need to develop new talent models, definitely to adapt to digital environment, while we're looking at innovators to build products which are innovative and meet the demands of the current age and future. We're also looking at marketers to catch up to that. And traditionally, we've not relied on data so very heavily. We've relied on what our sales is telling us. But now I think there is heavy dependence on data. So data insights or dynamic content creation, earned and paid media. I think there is a flexibility of using that data prudently and efficiently and effectively is what I think marketers are going to look for in the new gig economy. So really, these are the 7 mantras of what marketers and the innovation is going to be about. And many companies are moving towards data, whether it's any kind of industry, whether it's banking, or whether it is or FSI as a whole, or whether it is healthcare or pharma, or whether it is CPG, which is consumer packaged goods and retail, or whether it is manufacturing, or ENR, which is energy and natural resources, or public services or government. I think we've all seen the Atmanirbhar campaign as well, and some of the digital application innovation challenge that the government ran. We saw that as well as a channel for innovation. So I think governments are moving digital, the economy is moving digital, so marketers also have to move digital. So that's really a bit that I wanted to share today with respect to what marketing is and where marketing is going with respect to innovation during this crisis, and hopefully post this crisis as well. So thank you for your time. Dr. Arora, over to you for any questions.
Thanks, ma'am.
Yeah.
Enlightful session, and we came to know many things about this marketing. And one thing which you have emphasized a lot, that is the data. We do understand that many times we all were discussing about the pitch deck, how to make pitch deck, and there is one slide particular, what is the business modeling. So modeling of a business, what are the different kind of business modeling technique, in which even in the hybrid model also, number of companies, they are working in data collection and how to use that particular data. In many countries like China, they have collected such kind of data worldwide, and they are also managing it. So different kind of, and that data is ultimately going to help them in their marketing strategies. So yes, ma'am,
Yes.
it was a very good session and this particular, about the agile marketing development, agile development cycle. That is also very important, because everything you will have to move fast, which we
Yes.
also learn in lean startups, that unless you are not moving fast, it is not going to give you any particular result. Means being first mover advantage, means if you want to take, then you will have to go for agility and those kind of things. And it was a
Sure.
wonderful session. And
Thank you.
first of all, I just want to ask our participants that if they are having any question, they can come up and they can ask.
Ma'am, your presentation has been so point that it's really left us with no queries, specific queries at least. Thank
Okay.
you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Priya. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, in OTT, you were talking about over the top, I guess, through internet.
Yes, that's correct. So,
Ma'am, can you
yeah.
give some more examples to our students?
Yeah, so if you see the OTT entertainment market, whether it's Hotstar or whether these are all platforms where you are looking at, moving entertainment online, right? So whether it is Reliance or any of these big firms have come up with an OTT platform. So that OTT platform allows you with a different business model, which is really pay as you go. So you pay as much as you consume, right? So if you have Tata Sky at your place or Airtel at your space, so these are very large telecom providers who have not just got into the telecom infrastructure, but they've got into the content as well. So they are now streaming content based on your needs and your viewing preferences. So these OTT platforms have now, you have a choice as a customer or a consumer to choose what you want to consume, which was not the case many years ago, right? When your cable provider provided you with 150 or 200 channels for 300 rupees per month, you had no option but to say yes, because either you take those 300 channels for 300 rupees or you, because you couldn't come out of that. But now that vendor lock-in is completely gone, because now there is democratization of content and the platform as well. So today I can choose whether I want to stream from Airtel or from Hotstar or from Tata Sky. If I have premium content with me, content is driving me, whether it's HBO. If anybody's watched Game of Thrones, everybody is sort of, I mean, it's not the platform but the content that is driving. And you pay for the content that you want to consume rather than have those 300, 400, 500 channels. So it's more a la carte now, and that's what has risen. And the pandemic has only magnified that, because now you don't have to watch all of this. You can only watch a certain set of things that you want to. And based on the viewing preferences, what many of these companies have started to do also is package service lines accordingly. So for instance, I am interested in watching news, and I'm interested in I'm listening to music, or I watch music and movies. So they've created a viewing preference category where it is personalized for me, and the package is created accordingly. So where there'll be 2 channels for music that I have watched in the past based on my viewing history, with a movie that I would have watched, or the kind of, or a genre of movie that I would have watched, or the third would be the news channel that I would have subscribed to. So they would create a customized package, and that is the personalization that I was talking about, that MarkTech is moving towards that. And how is that personalization possible? Because all of these OTT platform providers have that data around your viewing history, have the insights around how much you have spent time watching that. So average time per session, and what your viewing preferences
All the
have been over
matrices,
a period
ma'am.
of time.
All the
So
matrices.
all the matrices are available with you, and that's how you're
But
able
ma'am,
to sort of drive that.
it
Yeah.
shows, ma'am, Martech is also requires means high quality of technology.
Yes, absolutely. And in many companies, now there is an emerging trend of building a customer data platform. So do look it up. McKinsey has come out with a new report called, the emergence of customer data platform. And that customer data platform is nothing but data streaming from multiple sources, whether it's online or offline, all different channels that you have, and making sense of customer insights. So it's basically customer insights on a platform. So and that's and very large companies who are consuming data, whether it's financial services or whether it is the entertainment companies or FMCG companies, very large companies who are in direct B2C space, have volumes of data. Google has volumes of data on our viewing history. What Google tracks everything that we do today, right? So you get contextual advertisements on your when you open your email. How do you think that happens? Because Google knows and reads and knows as to what your preferences are and what you are, what kind of psychographic profile you have. So based on that, they sort of manage to sell things, or know what you would be interested in. So customer insights is very key, and companies invest billions of dollars to ensure that research is done properly before they develop a product or an offering to meet the customer's needs. So
This have
very
heard from
important.
many people that data is money, money is data. Many initially
Yes.
people used to say that time is money. Now people are saying that data is money.
Yeah,
Ma'am, one
now I
question is,
think data is new oil, right? Oil prices have gone down, so we couldn't say oil. So data is the new currency, actually. Data
okay.
is the global currency. So if you've all heard of Bitcoin, I think data is the new Bitcoin.
Ma'am, one question is there in the chat box from
Sure.
Disha. Disha
Yes.
is our BBA student. She is asking that, ma'am, is influence marketing a new model of marketing as well? Is it more viable or profitable than TV or movie marketing? And that means, ma'am, she's asking about that TV and movie that maybe that is OOH marketing.
OTT. Okay. Okay. So I think, Disha, thank you for the question first. Um, uh, Influence marketing, actually, influencer marketing could be different, could mean different things.
Gori
B2B marketing, it means different things. B2C marketing, it means different things. In B2C marketing, it could be celebrity endorsements. I think that's what you're referring to, or social media influencers. I think you're probably referring to that. There are many social media influencers who play a huge role in influencing or getting followers, and getting them endorse a brand, whether it's Virat Kohli or Mahendra Singh Dhoni, or these are all people who role models that people look up to. And when they endorse a product, obviously celebrity or influencer marketing plays a role. There are many social entrepreneurs also, or people who've made a mark in the field of business or social impact. When they endorse a cause, that also is marketing. So these are different ways of marketing, and these are tactics or channels, or that you would use for marketing. Just as you would have events to endorse your products, events as channels to endorse your products, you will have celebrity influencers, or social media influencers, or influencers simply, who can champion your cause. So that's also it's not a new model, but that's also a model of marketing which is extremely successful, and many companies use that very effectively, and digitally now more than ever. You see a lot of these celebrities and a lot of these influencers using this for good causes as well. Whether it is our Dia Mirza or Priyanka Chopra, you would have seen their top influencer voices on LinkedIn as well as on social media, because they also support several causes, like whether it is for environment or climate for change, or poverty alleviation. So they support a lot of these causes as well. So it is viable or profitable, it really depends on what the brand is. So I wouldn't be able to compare as to what is profitable or what is not. It all depends on the brand's marketing strategy. If the brand or the company believes that they need to have a celebrity, or they need to have an influencer support their cause, then it can be profitable for them. Or if they believe that an insert in movie, or an endorsement in a movie or a TV serial or any of the web series, the sponsorship, that could also mean so. But it's just that the way we measure the success would be different for each of them, but it is really dependent on the brand and the company. So won't be able to compare the two. Both of them can be equally profitable. Hopefully I answered your question, Disha.
How to catch these influencers means when you go and you try to attract them, their PA, or they ask a huge amount even for one like in any of the social posts.
Yes. So one of the ways to, and this is something which I'm sharing from my experience, one of the ways to get influencers to support you, uh, it's a very important aspect, is community, right? And I mentioned about community and cohort as way forward for marketing, right? A lot of people with common interests and like-minded folks come together in a community and cohort. How does a community thrive? A community thrives through give and take. You have to give first to be able to take anything. So which really means is that in an influencer community, and if you want an influencer to be part of you, part of your community, or want to endorse your social cause or any cause or your marketing, you need to ensure that you need to connect with that community in such a way, in spirit and in practice. So you would have had to put a certain degree of effort to knowing what the influencer is doing, following the influencer with rigor, and making sure that that connection happens. And that's when I think it's a more pull method in influencer marketing than push, because the influencer has to really understand that you and the influencer are connected at that level. So it's very I would say it's very intellectual, and it has to be, if it has to be sustainable, it has to be drawn by cause only and common passion and interest. Why certain people come together for supporting certain things, whether it is for social or for profit causes, is really about the connection and the like-mindedness. So I think you have to be at it. You have to write more. You have to show interest. You have to drive in your own ways. Start small and simple, and hopefully with some of the search engine optimization and some of the techniques that we have, like backlinking, and that would also get you more interest and from the influencers. So long story short, it has to be community and purpose driven for you to be able to engage influencers. And these influencers will automatically come from pull methods rather than push, because they must be getting pushed so much information on a daily basis. So it's important to have pull rather than push in such efforts. Dr.
Great,
Arora.
ma'am. Great, ma'am. Great, ma'am. Ma'am, one question just popped up. That is, ma'am, nowadays using data for marketing is being questioned. Issued like data privacy breach. What are
Yeah.
your views on this, ma'am?
Fantastic question, Disha, and I'm so happy you're part of. You're a BBS student and you're thinking on the right lines. So really good. I wish you a fantastic career in marketing, if at all you choose to take it. So data for marketing, absolutely bang on. Data protection bill is being debated. Customer data is critical. It's important. And data security and privacy are big issues in companies, and a lot of IT departments spend sleepless nights in ensuring that data breach doesn't happen. But time and again we keep seeing data breaches happen, and customer data being out there in the open. A lot of the hacks that happen, as we are getting smarter, we also have to look at how we can use tech for, or data for good. And that's something which I'm seeing that many companies are working towards this mission. And I think it's a journey, Disha. So I think I spoke about customer data platform, why these initiatives are getting investments in the CIO office of a company, or in IT is no longer, switch on and off. IT has become a critical function within the organization, because IT connects all the different functions in a company, and customer data is being sort of used across all functions of the company, including marketing. So I think what companies are now doing is setting up data centers, making sure that there is a security of the data, building up robust customer data platforms. Fourth one is information and security policy. There's a data protection bill that has come out, which ensures that customer data cannot go out. You may have heard about GDPR as well. In Europe, you cannot sort of send out or spam customers or prospects without their consent. So really, those things are coming into play in marketing. A lot of the marketing technology firms are now using GDPR compliant software. So if the customer does not want them to be mailed to or called to, you will have to sort of remove them by law. It's illegal to call a customer or a prospect in Europe if they have actually unsubscribed you. You cannot spam with email marketing to any customer or prospect. So GDPR laws are very stringent, and companies who are looking to sell are also very sensitive to that policy. So big or small, I think this is a journey. We are discovering new ways. I think the government and the industry as a consortium are coming together to ensure that these breaches don't happen. And obviously there is active interest in this area. So that's the progress, or those are my views on data breach and data privacy and security.
Ma'am, you mentioned something about the GDPR laws overseas, and you mentioned Europe in particular. We also have our own IT laws, and like you mentioned, there is a debate going on. But considering that large section of the population is still uneducated in basic utilization of IT resources that are available to them, or mobile connect, so to that extent, do you think it's going to be really difficult for the government to ensure, that similar activity can be curtailed in India, rather than it's not going to be possible to completely negate it like it happens overseas, but here, it's going to be a little difficult for them to kind of apply it in reality. Companies, they can pressure, but how do you the company makes you sign sign in on something like, refer to the red herring prospectus kind of thing that happens with financial services. And I'm sure most of us as educated people don't do that as far as mutual funds is concerned. So, to that extent in IT, how do you see that?
Yeah. So, Dr. Priya, thank you. There is a data protection bill that is coming out. Obviously, a lot of the data that is being transacted digitally, I'm only speaking about digital data because other paperwork, I guess we're all moving from mm, paper intensive operations to paperless operations. So in the digital world, the telecom providers who control most of the data, transaction data or customer data, um, and companies who own customer data or selling offerings online or have digital data on the customer, there is a data protection bill. So Telecom Authority of India, TRAI, and also that's a regulatory body, so you cannot share customer data. Similarly, companies are also, or NASCOM has come out with NASCOM is working very closely with the government to ensure that there is protection and cyber security laws are in place to ensure that customer data is not compromised in any way. So wherever there is digital transaction, or wherever there is customer data, I think what I mentioned was the companies who are custodians of this data are also legally liable for any breach. Having said that, this is still a journey. Mobile data consumption, given the crime, there are going to be certain hacks that are going to happen, and there is going to be breaches that will happen. But given all of that, I think we are moving towards that journey. So in a country like ours, it's obviously difficult because of the demographics and the diversity and the scale and magnitude that we operate in. But it's a journey, and we're doing pretty well. The financial services is a fairly regulated industry, so our bankers have done a fairly decent job of ensuring that customer data is confidential. Telecom Authority, the regulatory authority which manages the customer data for our mobile devices, I think there is fair degree of regulation there as well. Having said that, what we share online, as in the social media, what we do online, we just have to be responsible of what we need to share. I think that education or awareness needs to spread through forums, and I'm like this, and there are vigilance councils that are being set up. A lot of children and a lot of people now with online education and everybody moving digital, they need to be mindful and aware of what can be shared online and what personal information should not be shared online. So that education is still happening. but there is a journey, and we are probably at least 3 to 4 or 5 years away from that journey. uh, mm, so in
Thank you.
pockets we are doing well, Dr. Priya, but still a long journey. Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I
Thank you,
hope
madam.
that we all have gathered good information about your topic. So if there are no questions, then
So,
um,
Sir Vipin, this side one
yeah,
question.
Bipin.
Thank you, madam, for your presentation. It was excellent. Madam,
Thank you.
recently the movie Social Dilemma came. It was basically about the manipulation and the unethical practices being followed in social media. So,
Correct.
how to prevent as a customer and as a entrepreneur, how to prevent the pitfalls which are being mentioned and how to avoid ourselves being getting exploited on social
Yeah,
media.
so I think everybody's talking about AI for good, AI for ethics, and because it's algorithm based, so they have traceability of your data. And you're absolutely right. Social Dilemma talks about emotional manipulation, right, of the mind. Basically, it plays with your mind based on what you're going through, because the streams of data are connected, and you're able to manipulate somebody's mind and behavior online. So I think this is where a responsibility lies with us as individuals to make sure that we don't um, sprout social, you know we don't we look at sharing information which is really for the good, and that responsibility lies with each one of us. I mean, really, you have to sort of make sure that some things which are very personal to you, you retain that, and not put it out there, because there is a digital record. No matter if you've deleted your Facebook account or your Google account or whatever, the record, once it is digital, it's available for posterity. So you have to recognize that, and therefore it's important to keep the guardrails on. And what those guardrails are really about: be careful about what you want to share and how you want to share it, and see what can impact you emotionally. So I think that balance needs to be with the individuals, and I would throw the responsibility back to the individuals sharing that information, and be contextually aware of what this information can do potentially in future. So for me, I think that's where I am coming from when I look at these experiments, whether it's the social dilemma or whether it's a social network. I'm really looking at, they are connecting streams of data. If it does not impact you, then you have nothing to worry about. But if it is going to impact you, you think twice before putting out any information out there. So I think as entrepreneurs, it's really looking at what is and as, of course, as consumers and as users of the social media, that responsibility we have. But as entrepreneurs, we also, or as companies, whether it's Googles of the world or Facebooks of the world or Netflix of the world, we need to also be responsible of making sure that we don't manipulate that data as well. So a lot of these folks who spoke about in the social dilemma came out because of their conscience, right? At the end of the day, they realized that their conscience was not allowing them to continue with some of those projects, because they realized that if we are manipulating somebody else may manipulate us as well. So it's a vicious circle. So really, I would go to a higher order thinking here of ensuring that you put your guardrails of what you want to share and how you want to share it. There are some things which are unavoidable, like your banking information or your transactional information, or how you do business. That's unavoidable, and those breaches are different from emotionally manipulating somebody. So that's something I think, those pitfalls are something you can stay away from if you don't put out anything and everything, or put your stream of consciousness on social media. I don't think it is required, and impressionable minds more so get carried away by that. And therefore, that would be my advice to many of the youngsters who are listening in, or who are using social media, to ensure that don't live your lives in digital. Lead a physical life, use digital for work, or to amplify something that you do, which is for the good. for yourself and for the people that you work with. So I think that would be my advice, Vipin.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else?
And one question is there that, ma'am, sorry for asking, but for a startup with a limited budget, what marketing strategies would you suggest?
Uh, I run a marketing department with zero budget. And how I do that is I don't have a celebrity endorser. I don't have influencer marketer. I have used the employees as the brand ambassadors. I create content with the people who develop code for the company and who build products for the company. For me, they are the heroes. For me, they are the heroines. So, and I craft a story based on what they want to convey. So, you can do marketing with zero budget. Forget limited budget. You can do it with zero budget. You have to be innovative. There are so many freewares available today online to start something. My other advice to you, Disha, would be is to start small and then scale. Prove with something which is small and then scale. So it is really about crawling, walking, running, flying. So crawl, walk, run, fly. So we all want to fly without knowing how to crawl. So you crawl, you develop, confidence, and then sooner or later, the pull will happen based on what you want to say. And then, there is a lot of freeware available online. If you look for digital marketing tools, for amplification, for content marketing, for advertising, there's a lot of stuff available that you can do free without spending a dollar or a rupee. So I think that would be my answer to you, Disha.
So, ma'am, thanks, ma'am. Thanks for your wonderful session. And I hope that there are no further questions. So if there will be any questions, ma'am, I will passing it to you through email.
Absolutely. I had such a fantastic time today and wonderful questions from students. And I'm very happy that to have joined and happy to answer any questions. I'm available on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect, I'm absolutely fine with that. Looking forward to connecting with all of you. Thank you, Dr. For
Thank you, ma'am.
inviting me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
But to the participants, I have posted feedback or attendance link in the chat box. Also, whoever has not filled till now can fill the form.